They literally stopped the very fundamental rule of law. They reversed the onus of proof. They denied the presumption of innocence. And what they did upon the landowner, they sent you into the court guilty, trying to prove your innocence. Now, listen, let's get this right. What is it about a leadership that we voted into office that should subject us to such denial of basic human rights that makes us worse than some of the most delinquent third world countries on the face of the earth? What has happened? Now, Wolfgang Kasper, a very great economist, spoke about the institutions of democracy. Now, we understand what these are. If we look at the International Bill of Rights, which Australia, by the way, has never ratified into local law. But basic things like the freedom of speech, freedom of religion. These are institutions that make our democracy function, that enable us to, over years and years of sacrifice, where men have gone out to fight for issues that they believed in, often never knowing if they would win, like Wilberforce with slavery, like women's suffrage. They fought these issues believing they were right. Now all these end up being what we deliver to our children, what our fathers fought for, what we embody in the flag. We suddenly find we have local, state and federal elected people who are quite prepared to tread these very institutions right into the dirty ground with no respect, with no respect. Somebody said to me, "Peter, it's so good you came down." Don't you ever say that to me. But you could have died. So what? As Jefferson said, if there is a few that die protecting this wonderful subject called liberty, so what? Isn't it sometimes essential that the need for those liberties to be protected is greater than the value of one or two lives? Jefferson also said, a little bit of rebellion keeps a democracy healthy. So I trust you're all up to it. Now I want to say this to you, and I think it's important that you recall some of these instances. Bob Carr is the demigod of arrogance in regard to democracy. I'll tell you a little bit of what he said. Here's Bob Carr, ABC Radio, Late Night Live, 206. I will give you another example, he says. They're talking about the need for a Bill of Rights. Oh, by the way, a few days ago in Parliament, the federal government decided they would pass a motion that we didn't need one because it would give too much power to the judiciary. Another sign of arrogance. Why do they assume that they have the right to take away from you and I that choice? It's the people's choice if we'll have a Bill of Rights, and it's also the people's choice as to what we'll put in it. They will do what they're told when we put it to them. We will not ask them, and they'll not be told that to do anything other than to do what they're told. Now, for them to pass an action on the floor of Parliament saying we don't need one is the height of arrogance. Bob Carr said this: I introduced laws that protected on private land, private farmland, restricted what farmers could do in farming it. We protected native vegetation and gave John Howard the right to boast about how Australia is achieving its greenhouse targets. Yet all the courts tell me, oh, there's no connection to the Commonwealth. So what, is Bob Carr a liar? Or am I blind? My ears don't hear? No. The judge has had judges. And hear me, judges, hear me. You have become so content to articulate amongst yourselves an incredible one-upmanship with your arrogant approach to debate and argument. You cannot see the need of the people anymore. I refer sometimes to Solomon. He was so simple in how he dealt with justice. The two women said, oh, we had a baby on the same night. She rolled on it and hers died. The other one said, no, it was hers that died. The baby's mine. He said, bring me a sword. Held up the child, said, cut it in half. And one woman said, don't. Don't touch the child, give it to her. Solomon says, that's the mother. Jeffrey Robinson QC, in a recent publication called Statute of Liberty, said this business of writing, as we saw last month, a 3,500 page judgment, is nothing more than intellectual one-upmanship amongst judges. Who's trying to impress who? Please, one page, handwritten, handed down, guilty or not, yes or no, why did he do it or didn't he? That's it, don't bullshit us. We don't need it. And we don't need all these costs in the court either. The courts are not places of commerce. The courts are the lifeblood of civilised society. Yep. And we need access to them, right top to bottom. Yep. Now, what I'm getting at is this. Bob Carr has an attitude towards the Bill of Rights, has an attitude towards us, the people. What would have happened if this same order he issued against the farmers had been issued against a suburb in Sydney to take all their houses, including his? How long would that have lasted? Now, let's just look at this one. Here is Australian government document. Okay, greenhouse gas accounts from a statement issued by Federal Minister for Environment and Heritage, David Kemp MP, Thursday, 15th of August. And interesting enough, he says these words. Australia has invested heavily, most heavily, to meet our quota targets. Although we do not see it has been in Australia's national interest to sign up to Kyoto, although Rudd did. For the reason that I've given, we nevertheless seek to be a good international citizen. We've invested and are investing around $1 billion in a range, like buying off the states, of measures to reduce Australia's greenhouse gas emissions. And we intend to invest further over the years. Our intention is to reach our quota targets of 108%. But it wasn't, was he? Because if you turn the page, the 1997 Act for Native Veg only got them down to 111%. So what do? Turn the page and find out. The reduction by some 60 million tonnes by 2010, equivalent to taking every passenger car off the road. On top of this, the National Carbon Accounting System, measurements on land use change. You know what land use change is? Land clearing. You change the use of the land. On land use change in Australia, show that we are reducing Australia's emissions from 122% of the 1990 levels to 111%. Listen to this. Our target is 108%. The measures have already brought us to 111, which indicates that there is a gap of 3%. This is 2002, remember? Can someone tell me when the next Native Veg Act came out?
03.
Thank you. That gained us the 3%. Out comes all that stopped, it was regrowth. Okay? Now, here we go. We need to recognise the fact that in meeting this target over the first period, we've benefited by the fact that there has been also a significant reduction in land use change since 1990, baseline period. Interesting enough, you know what he says? It's been an effort by the Australian community, which we must thank them for. Now, what about the farmers? Anyway, that's a government document, by the way. Now, by the way, if you could only see, we were in court on Tuesday, High Court. It took me 3 weeks and 4 attempts to file the affidavits for that particular, and there was 2 volumes that thick, totaling 490 pages. That's just one submission, which was heard on Tuesday. Each one of them were government documents, and one of them was the 2005 accounts on the official government letterhead, signed by the Minister for Environment, that show that out of the 88.2 million tonnes, almost 100% paid by the farmers. But when you bring it to the government's attention, which we tried to do in the Canberra rally by putting in a massive big envelope, they won't even read their own documents. They just